Have you been feeling the pinch lately? I certainly have. I don't know what it is. I've been earning more money than I ever have, but some things are just not adding up. And I started digging into it a little bit, and I found that there's a hidden tax we are paying that doesn't really get talked about unless you're probably an economist or something like that. So I just wanted to share with you my thoughts on what's going on and try break it down a little bit. There's going to be a huge analogy in here, a bit of a story really, so bear with me while I go through that. If you're new to the channel, I'm Ziv, welcome. I post lots of videos about different things, just have a yarn really about life, about the things I'm interested in, all of that. So if you like this video, hook us a like and I'll see you on the next one. Anyway, from the government, usually we get a paycheck and we can see the tax coming out of it, or we buy some goods like our groceries and you can see the GST on our groceries. Sorry for the wind, and I think it's about to start raining, so we'll see how we go. But we can mostly see what taxes we are paying everywhere. But this tax is a little bit different, and it has stung some countries like crazy, where they've nearly gone bust, and we just don't see it coming up, or that it's even happening, right? Yep, it's starting to rain. So the tax is related to governments printing money and inflation, how that links to inflation. Now, for my big long-winded analogy, I'll start with an old medieval village, right? Let's say you have 10 families and they all have 10 gold coins, right? They got 10 gold coins each. It's a hypothetical scenario, so just bear with me. Now, they use these coins to trade, because in summer, the guy who walks down to the creek and picks up water for everybody, he doesn't work during the winter, so he trades his time during the summer, gets other people's coins, and in winter he needs to buy food, and he uses that so he doesn't need to make a direct trade anymore. There was, say, a gold mine. Some people worked in it. Every now and then a tiny bit of new gold would enter the economy, but nothing crazy, and everybody was happy. There was sort of 100 gold coins in the economy, and people traded for goods, services, whatever they needed. Now, bandits are in the area of the town, and a dude gets robbed his one gold piece. So the town goes, okay, let's not actually carry our gold around with us. Let's issue a piece of paper that says it's worth one gold coin, and we'll put all of these coins in a safe, into like a bank, let's call it. And now everybody has this official, wax seal, whatever, piece of paper that says they own one gold piece, and they can trade these papers, which are basically worthless if they get stolen, right? Everybody's happy with that, makes their gold safe, and everybody still has the same value of assets, just stored in the bank, and if they ever need to redraw the gold, they can go with the amount of paper certificates that they have to withdraw those assets. Happy days. Now along comes, the town grows bigger, and along comes a king. He's looking after the village, and suddenly there's an invasion coming, and the king goes, all right, I don't have enough money to afford to get everybody to work for me. There's no incentive. So what do I do? So the king releases 100 new gold coin certificates, and he starts, employing different people. The water cart man, he needs water stocks to last out the siege, so he pays a little bit above premium. He pays one gold coin and a half certificate or something for the same amount of water that used to cost one gold coin to get the work happen. The water cart man, he's happy. Then he gives a few more certificates to, say, the man who's got all the veggies or the cattle, and buys the cattle, you know, instead of 1 gold coin a head, at 1.5 gold coins a head. And the cattleman is happy to give up his stock to the kingdom for the siege rather than selling it to everybody. And the king spends all his money and has released all these additional certificates. But now at the bank, if there's all these certificates, basically double the certificates, there's now 200 certificates but only 100 gold coins backing the currency. So now the bank has to go, well, if somebody brings in a certificate, it's only going to get you half a gold coin, because the king had no actual gold coins. He made stuff happen with these new certificates. People thought there was a decent value to them, but behind their back, the value of them had dropped right to the actual asset that sat behind the certificate. Then the trickle down effect is that everybody has a bit more money, right? And everybody's used to the king, you know, paying a bit higher. So then in the next year they go, well, a water cart trip is now 1.5 gold coin certificates. And so the price of everything has gone up a bit, until it probably balances out where it's the same as before. The price of a water cart trip is going to end up being about 2 gold coin certificates, because the money would have flown through the economy and everybody's just used to paying a higher price and receiving more for their services because of this additional spending that happened. Over time, the bank and the king realized that nobody's really withdrawing their actual gold coins anymore with their certificates. And they go, well, you know, every now and then somebody might come in, they might withdraw a coin, you know, from taxes from the gold mine, whatever. We can add a coin every now and then, but we can print as many of these certificates as we want, because the risk is now lower that these people are going to withdraw on their assets, on the actual gold coins, and through taxes and whatnot we can keep some other assets that, you know, can be used potentially as repayment if they should withdraw on all the money. And this is why banks have defaulted, right? They do exactly the same thing. They don't have the required assets that if everybody was to pull their money out to actually give them their money. You can see that if, say, the water cart man was to go, I need to move to a different kingdom, I want to now cash in my gold certificates, but now he's got double, he's got 10 or 20, but there's only 100 gold coins in the thing. He'd take lots of other people's shares of the gold, right, to try get out of the kingdom where only gold is accepted or the notes are not, you know, recognized. So the value of the certificates had dropped in comparison to the underlying asset. Now this isn't exactly how it works these days. Basically, you got like fiat currencies, tangible currencies, all these crazy economic things that I'm not actually too well versed in. You should look them up themselves, but governments can print money. You've probably heard of that word, like the US government prints a whole bunch of money, and it's not that they're literally printing cash, although sometimes a little bit of cash gets printed, but they're releasing money in ways that is almost untangible. Like the RBA in Australia during COVID released some money to the government, you know, basically made new money and bought government bonds, things like that, which is like a government loan. And then the government was able to inject this new money as stimulus packages, you know, like relief, you know, we had energy bill relief, all of those sorts of things. So our currency got watered down, just like those certificates from the king. When he printed new certificates, they only became half the value of a gold coin. Our currency, which is the whole pool of money, every little bit now counts for a little bit less because it's been watered down, right? By creating some new money that helps with stimulus and economy in the short term, that it keeps flowing. People can spend more money because they feel like they have more money, all of this, but they have more money, right? So you have more, but everything else in the economy stays the same. And it takes a few years for that to trickle down, right? So say this happened in 2020, which I believe it did. After 2020, we started seeing higher rates of inflation, up to 7% or more per annum, right? Now, the bank and the government, nobody wants to admit fault, and they point fingers at each other and go, oh, you know, was it really the fault of, you know, printing new money that inflation went up so much? Regardless what you think, this is what I think. So yeah, they watered down our currency a bit, which makes it, you know, our dollar drops in comparison to other dollars. Then when we import stuff, all of that sort of stuff happens, and we have less bargaining power because our dollar is less strong. And then over a few years, as that money makes its way into the economy from the new printed money, we start seeing a raise in inflation, which is the lowering of the value of our dollar. And basically, like, there's normal inflation, and that happens for multiple reasons, but when you print money, down the track, inflation happens. And this happened the worst, you know, in Germany, I reckon, at the end of World War I. The German government had printed so much money to fund, you know, its war efforts, that after the war, you know, the mark started, you know, just tanking like crazy. And it was like then hyperinflation basically sets in, and it runs away. And they had like various measures, like changing their currency and everything to try and get rid of it. But yeah, there was a time when it was like a dollar bill cost more to make than it was actually worth. So like a piece of paper was more expensive than the money that was printed on it. So people could like use it as wallpaper, right? You know, you spend some money and you got some paper that was worth less than what it was printed on, and they started like using it as wallpaper and stuff. Like, it was just ridiculous, right? So don't want to go there. You want to keep inflation under control. But yeah, every time the government, I mean the bank or the government, seeks to get money in this way, you're the one paying for it at the end of the day through inflation. Like, your dollar becomes less valuable. So let's say you don't get a pay rise in that time, you will have just been taxed basically for that equity release that the bank did. And that's not cool at all. Like, they don't tell you about this when they're doing it. You love taking the money, like, yeah, this is great, but at the end of the day, it's just another one of their taxes that you don't see. Like, you don't see it on a piece of paper, you don't see it on your, you know, your pay slip, you don't see it on your receipt as GST. It just creeps up on you, and it is a tax by the government, and they can pull this stuff anytime. Like, whether it's a war, whatever, you know, they just go, all right, let's start printing some money. I mean, it's a bit more controlled than that, and they don't tell you you're the one who's going to be paying for it at the end of the day, because I live in Australia, and then the whole Australian currency loses value because you've just watered it down with new currency that has no underlying asset. They're just making money out of thin air. So I hope that makes sense. And yeah, not all doom and gloom. Most things should keep up with inflation, but when you get like high rates of inflation, which I reckon that stems from them making new money, yeah, it's a tax that they're not telling you about, which means they're more confident to do it. Like, let's say at the start of COVID, they went, okay, to raise this money for all the COVID relief, we're just gonna tax you an extra 5%. From now on, for the next 5 years, we're going to get an additional tax. That government would be super unpopular, right? And be voted out the next election. No one wants to pay more taxes. But they just go, okay, let's issue a whole bunch of bonds or loans, new loans, all right? And who's gonna fill those loans? Okay, well, Mr. Royal Bank of Australia, let's print some money out of thin air and invest it in our loans. Government gets their money. No one pays any tax. No one really hears about it. At least I didn't. Everyday Australians, I don't reckon, would have. And, you know, the RBA raises interest rates, right? To try curb inflation, you know, try curb that spending. Make it more difficult for people to borrow money. Otherwise it goes out of control. Anyway, I think I'm gonna have to leave you there. I just wanted to sort of put my thoughts on paper. Don't know if they're right or wrong. So yeah, if you like a real chat like this, hit subscribe on the channel and I'll keep posting up yarns about various different things and my thoughts, so on and so forth. Cheers guys, catch you on the next one. Holy shit. Those trees are freaky. Oh, these trees are hectic. This wind is just blowing a gale and you can hear a lot of clunking happening.